right? All right. We talked about this morning how prophecy tells us that there are certain events that are coming. One of those events includes an economic collapse. Now, you can read this in the Bible in Revelation 13. It's very, very clear and very obvious that the Bible tells us that there's going to come a point in time where you won't be able to buy or sell. Every earthly support will be cut off. And we're at that point now. Let me tell you, if you know anything about the banking industry, if you know anything about trading, everything is moving from a physical currency to a digital currency. And that's for a reason. That's one of the devil's ways of completely controlling the mass. When you look at the history of Daniel, that happened during Daniel's time. You look at the history of Joseph, that happened during the time of Joseph. And Joseph was on the cutting edge being in Egypt because he was able to prepare for the famine. So friends, another famine is coming. And prophecy points that out. And I want to tell you, a lot of times after a collapse of an economy, you'll always see a dictator rise. Always.
History repeats itself.
That's correct. And let me tell you, the players are in place right now. They're just waiting for things to develop so that they can assert their power. Because they have the power. They've got the money. Economic collapse, Sunday law, persecution. But the promise is this, and this is what I want to emphasize, that no matter what happens, if you and I are surrendered to Jesus, our bread and water has been sure. Amen. You know, the Lord's going to provide for us, friends. But guess what? We have to do our part. You know, the servant of the Lord says that if you get a little home on a little piece of land and you're able to grow your own food, you will live like a king or a queen. That's what we're told in inspiration. That's because our bread and water, and this is the promise to the remnant, right? So we want to talk a little bit about that. I love taking pictures of nature. A lot of times in the springtime, most of these pictures I took on my property during springtime. So you're seeing, in essence, what really grows in nature. When you look at nature in its beautiful beginning stages around springtime, it's a sign of new life. It's the way God envisions you and I to have new life. It says there at the bottom of the screen, in the beginning, He, God, placed our first parents amid the beautiful sights and sounds He desires us to rejoice in today. So in the beginning, Adam and Eve were placed in what? Garden. And He desires us to go back to the garden. And He's just wanting us to be willing to do that. In 2009, I kind of by accident started what was called Country Outpost Tours. And these are tours where we would take people. I started with individuals down in the Loma Linda area because I'm from Riverside. I was an elder at the Mentone Church for many years. And then I moved away to where I am now. That was back in 2008. But in 2009, this was a group that we brought up just to kind of look around and learn about country life. So we would show them how to prune trees. We would show them how to plant, how to irrigate, so on and so forth. And several people from this church came as well. Tracy was one of our tour guests. But it's a lot of very good practical information and skills that you can learn. It says there at the bottom of the screen, the planting of plants, the training of plants and flowers tends to the improvement of taste and judgment. And this is a lady that we work with in Northern California, has a really beautiful garden. She's a Seventh-day Adventist. By the way, all of the people that you will see in this presentation, they're all Seventh-day Adventist homeowners. They own property, and they kind of help assist others to find their place and to set it up the way we should in the last days. While an acquaintance with God's useful and beautiful creation has a refining, ennobling influence upon mine, referring it to the maker and master of all. So the idea of country life is not so much where you get a place where you run and hide. The idea of country life is to find a place like Enoch where you can live in its purest state and it can remind you of God. This was a young lady that came out as well on the tour. This, by the way, that little girl now is about 21. And you know what's interesting? Here's the interesting thing, and I say this for families that have children, little kids. Anytime, and this happens all the time when we do the tours, anytime you bring the children out and they play with the children that live in the country, they don't want to leave. They love it so much. And they encourage the family, and such was the case with the little girl there. She just did not want to leave. She loved the lifestyle, and she was attracted to just the kind of the beautiful sights and sounds. There was a TV series not too long ago entitled Too Close for Comfort. And I do believe that that's kind of where we are today. And the reason why is found in this statement. This is a statement from Country Living on page 16. It says, "It would be well for you to lay aside your perplexing cares and find a retreat in the country where they are not so strong an influence to corrupt the morals of the young." Goes on to say, "True, you would not be entirely free from annoyances and perplexing cares in the country, but you would avoid many evils and close the door against a flood of temptations which threaten to overpower the minds of your children." So you can see the counsel is more so for parents that have children. Because she says here, there are corrupting influences that will, and she calls it many evils, as well as a flood of temptations. So I know, what's that? Overpowering the mind, correct. And do we not see that today? You know, I'm finding there are few and few people who believe in the Bible, believe in God. Most young people nowadays, they consider themselves atheists, infidels. They seem to not believe in God. And I always ask the question, how could that be? How could it be that, and it's the city life. Let me show you an example. I grew up in the inner city in Los Angeles. This was a billboard. I actually took this picture. I could not believe it. You see the spin and the play on words there? Imagine a kid looking at that and saying, "Mom, what does that mean?" You know, this is the many evils that Ellen White is referring to. And see, you see that type of billboard in the city, but in the country, that's kind of a rare. Here's another one. What about that one? Imagine your daughter or your son looking at that and say, "Mom, I want some. What is that?" You know, and you have to explain what that is because you're passing by that every day on the freeway. You know, this is the flood of temptations that she's referring to. What about this one? Right? You see the subtitle there, The Final Seduction. You know, you see it a lot. I know we see it down in Southern California. I don't know so much about here, but you know, that may not be so bad, but a lot of young people are drawn to that because you see the sign says, "Just do it. Just do it. Have no restraint. Just do it. Whatever you want to do, just do it." That's what the sign suggests. What's that?
Just do it with Jesus.
Right. Or better yet, what would Jesus do?
Oh, yes.
That would be better. In fact, that should be right next to that billboard. All right. Here's a statement, Country Living. It says, there's not one family in 100 who will be improved, notice, physically, mentally, spiritually by residing in the city. So the idea is to understand that you and I can be improved physically, mentally, spiritually. And I think that's the reason why we see so much the rise of mental health. We definitely see the rise in a lot of rioting, smashing and grabbing is a big thing down south. I mean, it's at a point now where police don't even respond. When you call about someone stealing, especially if they're stealing on your property or stealing from you, they don't even respond. Number one, because they don't have the personnel. Number two, because they know that when they respond there, they're going to get another call right over here. And it's like they can't be two places at one time. And so there's a big reason why you and I should want to move out of the cities now. And it's not only for physical, mental, but spiritual especially. I was at the St. Louis General Conference. Actually, I think it was about 20 years ago. It was in St. Louis. I took this picture. I actually went to the top of that arch. It's beautiful up there. You can travel up there in an escalator. You get to the top. They've got windows. You can look out over the city. And it's really attractive. But everything you see is nothing but like concrete, lights, buildings. Yeah. She says here, Country Living, page 6, parents flock with their families to the cities because they fancy it is easier to obtain a livelihood there than in the country. And that was the case, and it still is today, but it's becoming less and less the case with a lot of remote employment, where you can work from home. I know that there were several people who moved up where I am. They work from home. One gentleman works for the government. He just works from home. Another lady, she does something like medical billing or something like that. They work from home. So more and more, there are opportunities to work remotely. A lot of times people become stressed when they work in a corporate environment. And not saying that's all bad, just simply saying. 75% of the general population experience at least some stress every 2 weeks, according to the National Interview Survey. Millions of Americans suffer from unhealthy levels of stress at work. Do you have stress at work? Do you have stress on the job? Some of the things that, you want to think about and consider. I like the scripture in Job 22, verse 21. It says, acquaint now thyself with him and be at peace. Thereby good shall come unto thee. This is up by my place. This is actually Mount Lassen. And every time we do a tour, we take families, we come in, we get groups of people and we take them up and we do the tours and whatnot. We take them out here on Sabbath and we walk around that lake. That's called Manzanita Lake. And so we just take the group up and we literally stand at this point. There's a point where you could see that mountain like that. It's the best picture shot that you could take. We'll stand and take a group picture there. But I always notice how a lot of people, they'll come to that point and they'll stand there and say, wow, it's just so natural, so beautiful, so picturesque. It almost looks fake, when you look at it in real life. But it's really nice. Some of the other pictures I want to show you, I'll get to it here in a minute. I want to kind of show you a little bit of the downtown parts of different cities. And just kind of notice the contrast between the downtowns and the countries. It says, in choosing their surroundings, few make their spiritual prosperity the first consideration. This is downtown Detroit at night. Notice all the lights, right? And then obviously, if you have young people, they're being influenced by things like this, psychic fortune tellers and things. That's becoming really big now. And you don't have to really go to them. They come to you on the internet now. And then, of course, Hollywood, which is really changing now. This statement here always puts it in perspective for me. In Country Living on page 5, she says, life in the cities is false and artificial. Life in the city is false and artificial. I mean, when you think about that picture, you look at that picture there, what's natural in that picture? Like, name one thing that's natural. You can't even really say the water. I mean, the water is natural, but I guarantee you that water is recycled. I guarantee you they have a pump that's shooting that water out like that. The water just doesn't shoot out of the ground like that. So truly, life in the city is false and artificial. Whereas in the country, there's something always to see that's just really, really attractive to the eye. The more nearly we come into harmony with God's spiritual plan, the more favorable will be our position to secure health of body and mind and soul. Health of body, mind, and soul. And I tell you what, friends, when I moved to my place. I used to live in Riverside for many years. And in 2008, at the time of the collapse of the economy, well, when they said housing, I moved up north. And when I would drive down, my driveway from the gate is about 1.25 miles from the gate to where I live. And every time I take that drive down, it's like something just begins to relax. You feel this sense of relaxedness that comes over. And I believe that the statement there kind of well defines it. Here's another one. There's a kind of a little creek on the property that I usually go on Sabbath and I'll sit. And one Sabbath I went and sat down by the creek and I fell asleep. And when I woke up, it was only for about a minute or two I fell asleep. But when I woke up, there was a little fawn that was just sitting there. And he didn't know I was asleep. You know, he just kind of wandered down there and then sat down in the grass there. And I could almost reach out and touch it. Well, I got my camera and I kind of quietly took a picture. And being that close, you see things you don't see. I mean, when you see it with the eyes, it's just the beauty of nature. It's like, wow, the first thing you can say is there is a God. You look at that and you say, there is a God. This is not like, something you would see on television, because it's real. So this was a lady that had kids. She brought her daughter out on the tour, Latino lady, and usually we take groups out 3 times. We'll take them out in the spring, in the summer, and then in the fall. This was in the fall in September, and that's when the harvesting of the fruit. You get a lot of fruit, that we let the people go out and harvest the fruit. You could see she took her daughter out there, and first time her daughter ever tasted a peach. Very first time. She put it in her mouth, and her daughter bit the peach, and her eyes just went, eyes just blew up. I didn't get that part. I just got her biting the peach, but I was pretty amazed to see that. The thirst for display, the luxury and extravagant, all are, notice, forces that with the great masses of mankind are turning the mind from life's true purpose. So this thirst for luxury, it's like a force, right? And we see it all around the world. This is Houston, downtown Houston, Texas. The time is near when large cities will be swept away, and all should be warned of these coming judgments. Why would God want to sweep a city away? What would cause that? Has that ever happened before?
Yes.
Why did it happen? And we're told that all the cities are going to be swept away by the judgments of God. Now, the question is, those of us that know this, what do you think we have an obligation for? To share this, right? To tell, to warn people that soon, one day, unfortunately, because of the wickedness, God's going to sweep away these major cities. Right? Here's another one in ministry of healing. It was not God's purpose that people should be crowded into cities, huddled together in terraces and tenements. So it was not God's plan for us to be crowded into cities. What is God's plan? This is Las Vegas. We went down sometime, I think it was about a year and a half, 2 years ago. A friend of mine had built a life-size replica of the Daniel 2 statue. So it was 60 feet tall. I think it was 60 feet tall. Anyway, it was very big. We had to cart it in on a trailer, and it had a hydraulic lift to lift it up. So we carted it in laying down on the trailer to Las Vegas. I mean, we were down on just off the strip. And friends, when we got that there and we lifted it up, now it's tall where you can see it all around. People were stopping. They were saying, "What is that?" You know? And we were able to share with them the prophecies of Daniel 2 and Daniel 7 and pass out books and things of that nature. But it was really an attractive thing for Las Vegas. Oh, that God's people had a sense of the impending destruction of thousands of cities now almost given to idolatry. Thousands of cities, we're told, they're going to be destroyed. You know, it almost seems like it's hard to believe, but now, as you look at what's happening nowadays, you can tell that, yeah, I can see that it is going to happen one day. This is Los Angeles, where I'm from. Even Los Angeles has changed. You know, very little. You know, Los Angeles used to be the city of palm trees. Everywhere you go, you'd see a palm tree, and they're real tall. But you know, even the palm trees struggle to stay alive now because of all the exhaust and the lack of rain. You know, you hardly get any rain and so on and so forth. Physical surrounding of the cities are often a peril to health, the constant liability to contact with disease, the prevalence of foul air, impure water, impure food, the crowded, dark, unhealthy dwellings are some of the many evils to be met. But then again, in the country, imagine waking up to a view like this every morning. What do you think that would do for your mind and for your body? You know, what do you think that would do for your marriage? You know, this is something you take your wife on the honeymoon and then you leave and you go home and you never go back. What if you lived here? You know? Beautiful flowers, beautiful colors. And one thing I've noticed is that a lot of the wildflowers or flowers, periodly, there are no two flowers alike. They're all different. September 11th, Twin Towers. It says, in the calamities that are now befalling immense buildings and large portions of city, God is showing us what will come upon the whole earth. So God's showing from September 11th, the Twin Towers, according to this statement, what's coming on the whole earth. And you remember when that building came down, you know, buildings so thoroughly constructed that men regarded them as secure against every danger quickly became heaps of rubbish. The world over, cities are becoming hotbeds of vice. On every hand are the sights and sounds of evil. Everywhere are enticements to sensuality and dissipation. The tide of corruption and crime is continually swelling. Every day brings the record of violence, robberies, murder, suicide, and crimes unnameable. I took a video of, the riots and whatnot that are going on down in Los Angeles about 2 months ago, actually about a month ago. And downtown LA, they have several buildings that were targeted repeatedly. Repeatedly. They would target the building and they would take everything and then they would wait a month and they'd go back and target it again. And those buildings were the Apple Store, the Apple iPhones, and the Foot Locker with tennis shoes. But there were other buildings. And I mean, these guys would go in, like 50, 100 of them go in, take everything, and the employees would just stand back. Nothing they can do. It's the same way in, the Bay Area, San Francisco. You remember Hurricane Katrina back in 2004? You remember? Let me show you some pictures. This is kind of, it puts it in perspective when you see this, right? Because you can see here this old historic church that's been there for hundreds of years before the hurricane. Notice after the hurricane. Again, before, after. Here's another one. A historic Victorian house, kind of a tourist attraction, before, after, right? What about this one? Before, after. Here's the pier. This is in New Orleans. Before, after. Okay, before, after. This is an interesting one. Before, after. All right. I want to read this statement, and then we're going to kind of open it up for questions. I want to talk a little bit about what we're going to do tomorrow as well, but I want to get some of your questions. It says here, out of the cities, this is the message the Lord has been given me. The earthquakes will come, the floods will come, and we are not to establish ourselves in the wicked cities where the enemy is served on every hand and where God is so often forgotten. That's Country Living 31. And that's another one where she talks about earthquakes, floods, fires, murders. All right. Any questions? Comments? Yes.
Where is it exactly that you live? What part of California?
So I live in Northern California, which is the far end of California. So it's right on the border of Oregon. That's where I live.
My brother lives in
Reading. That's pretty much where I am. But again, you don't have to go to Reading. You all can, right around here, I'm sure there's property you can find. And that's what we're going to do tomorrow. We're going to kind of go out with Dave. He's going to take us out and show us a couple places here locally that you just want to consider. My goal is to kind of point out some of the features you want to keep in mind when you're looking. Number one, you want a place with water, with a good water source. Number two, you want a place, obviously it's not a problem here, but you want a place with sun exposure. And then number three, you want a place where you're not really so much influenced or landlocked by neighbors.
What do you mean by that?
So what I mean by that is, sometimes when you buy property, you have to kind of get, in some places, you have to get an easement from your neighbor to get to your property. You want to stay away from that for obvious reasons. You want to try to have a place where you can access it from a main road so that you can get to and from your place without any problems. And I can tell you some stories about people who've had problems with property that was landlocked. right-of-way easement. Not only that, one of the other challenges that, sometimes they have a tendency, if you get a place that's landlocked, chances are you don't own the gate. So the person that owns the gate can lock the gate, and you just have to hope he opens it. Or you can take him to court, and because there is usually a clause in the deed where he has to give you a right-of-way. But see, those are some of the things you want to avoid, because there's going to come a point in time where your enemies are going to be all around you. Not to say we should worry about that, but it's just something to keep in mind if you're looking. Yes.
So, in the case of Sodom and Gomorrah, a guy came down and he warned Lot and his family. What's the warning like for us in our present day and time? Is God gonna come to us and say, get out of the cities? Or is this the warning right now that we're having? How does that work?
I think that's a great question. I believe that, yes, we are seeing the warning. We are seeing everything that was in Sodom in major cities around us. Everything from the LGBT, the rise of LGBT, as well as the violence, the crime, the boldness. People are bold. They just, they'll come on your property, take anything you got, if they can. What's that? Yes. Yes. Pollution.
When all those things happening in Sodom and Gomorrah, but God still sent his angels?
Absolutely. So, my feeling is that God is doing that today. We may not see a physical angel, but we'll hear about the benefits of, like we're talking about now, country living, country life. Let me tell you, friends, if you've ever tasted a store-bought, and this may sound really trivial, if you've ever tasted the difference between a store-bought peach and a peach that you grew, you would not want that store-bought peach, even if they gave it away.
I think the same thing with apples.
The same thing with apples. Tomatoes, you name it. Anything that you can grow from the soil is going to be far superior, because you got to realize whenever they harvest anything that you buy in the supermarket, they harvest it unripe. And they usually ship it and it's ripening on the way. So you're not getting all the nutrients that you would have gotten from the tree because it's being riped artificially. A lot of times I talk to a grower in Bakersfield, in the San Joaquin Valley in Bakersfield, a Hispanic gentleman, and he told me that they have a chemical agent to make, they grow grapes there. He said, we can make the grapes do anything we want them to do using chemicals. If we want them bigger, we can make them bigger. If we want them sweeter, we can make them sweeter. If we want them more red, we can make them more red. Whatever we want, we have a chemical that will enable them to be that. And that's what you and I pay for. That's what we live on. See, these are the food in America, friends, is second to none. You go anywhere in the world, you get better food than in America. So this is the reason why God is calling us to get out of the cities. One of the reasons. Because let me tell you, the Seventh-day Adventists, the right arm of the gospel is the health message. And you have a far more advantage to sharing the health message if you grow your own food. Okay? Any more questions? I saw one or two. Yes.
I have a question about the role of property taxes. How does that play into it? So when we can no longer buy or sell, and we have property in the country, I don't know
Yes. Yeah, there are two ways to avoid property tax. You can get what's called a welfare exemption or a religious exemption.
In the state of California?
In the state of California. But you have to meet certain criteria to get those exemptions, and it's very difficult. Like, for example, this church property here has a a religious exemption. But if you're living there, if it's your house, they're generally not going to give you a religious exemption. They're really only going to give it on property that's dedicated to religion.
And I wonder, if you, let's say in your place, you have 40 acres.
Yes.
So let's say you don't pay property taxes. I guess the likelihood of somebody, the sheriff, coming in and evicting you is probably less than if you were to live in the city. Is that correct?
Not.
Or you could hide someplace, right, amongst the 40
No,
acres.
let me.
I think serious.
No, I know, and I appreciate the question. I appreciate the question. I really do, because it's a good question. But let me tell you, when it comes to money, you can never hide from the government. When it comes to money, they're going to fine you, or they're going to take what is yours and get the money.
Yeah, I think for what sister, you're saying that, for example, you live in the city, somebody could probably, if you're at the point of being evicted, you can padlock that door, somebody's watching you, you're there. But on a piece of land, I don't think it's that easy to do so.
What? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
If we can no longer buy or sell, then we can't pay our property taxes.
Well, at that point, that's different. We're told that, the promise says our bread and water's been sure. We're told also that we're going to have to flee. When you get to a point to where you can't buy or sell, we're going to have to leave the smaller cities and go way out into the mountains. That's what we're told. And the reason being is because of the laws that are coming strictly against Seventh-day Adventists. But that time is short, and that time has not come. The most important thing right now is to learn to trust God. And a lot of that has to do with us just obeying him now. Because when that time comes, he's going to tell us what to do and how to do it. And he's going to keep us. He's going to keep us safe. But to answer your question really quickly here, when it comes to property tax, generally what they'll do is they'll just auction off your property without you even knowing it. If you're non-payment, your payment hasn't come in 5 years, like you said, because it is 5 years. It compounds over 5 years with interest. And if you still don't pay it or make plans to payment, they have a payment plan. If you don't do the payment plan or pay the full amount, they have an auction date where they do it every year. They'll just auction the property, and then the marshals will come and drive you off the property. It's very swift, and they're very serious when it comes to that, yeah.
Okay, this doesn't have to do with property directly, but I was listening to a news report, and going back to what you were saying regarding what they're going to do Seventh-day Adventists, they were actually compiling a list of groups that worship on Saturday.
Yeah.
And within that list, besides Seventh-day Adventists, there were a number of other groups that were not
Right.
Seventh-day Adventists, but that they labeled as Sabbath keepers. So now they're,
Yeah.
taking inventory of who
Yeah,
they
they
have to, I guess, worry about.
yeah, I mean, again, we're in a great controversy. We know that there's two sides to the controversy, good and evil. So evil can use whatever agency they use to war against the good and to force the good. So yes, that could be the case. But again, friends, we don't want to really dwell on that point, because here's the thing. with everything bad that could happen to us, God can overrule it. I can tell you some stories, friends, on how he's done that for me. You know, every time the enemy, the enemy sought for evil, God meant for good. And I've seen that happen over and over again. So as long as we are in right relation with God and fully surrender to him, nothing man can do can bind you. And even if it does happen, God can turn that into blood. Look what he did for Joseph. We're studying Joseph in the Sabbath school lesson. Look what he did for Joseph. Joseph's own brothers turned on him. And look at what ended up happening with Joseph between his brothers and his father. I mean, you can't make that up. No person can design something like that. That's only God. David?
So, like, regarding property taxes, there's a thing called the Williamson Act. So you can actually, your taxes are reduced by like 89% if you're under that act. You have to, like, somewhat to the extent of commercially grow to the public, which we do, but you can actually apply for that. I met with Santa Clara County, not weights and measures, but
Right.
Santa Clara County agricultural guy, and he told me that they've been issuing in Santa Clara County, which is pretty large, the Williamson Act exemption, so your property taxes like almost nothing.
Okay.
If you just grow a little bit for the consumption of others,
Right.
you can get it. But also, going to tax liens, every March, San Diego County puts out a tax lien list on the website.
Right.
Of properties that are in default.
Right.
But I've seen people where they just make token payments and it comes off the list.
Yeah.
So it's not, you actually kind of avoid that by making some token payments and it'll take you off it, unless it's complete default, not default for a long period of time.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
I'm surprised that we as Seventh-day Adventists, especially people that, because I just came into it, but people that's been for a long time, that we are not better prepared.
Right.
We know what's coming.
Right.
In my mind, why do we not have areas everywhere where there's places, trees that are already grown.
Right.
Crops that are already, look at what do we call them? The
Amish.
Amish.
Yeah.
They don't care if Jesus comes tomorrow. They are prepared.
Right.
They are, of course, they don't have the whole truth, right? They worship on Sunday, but they are prepared. They don't have to ask the government for anything.
Right.
They do everything as a community. And aren't we bigger? Aren't we
Yes.
more people? We should be way ahead of
We should
the
be.
game.
Yeah.
Because there is no reason with what we know is every place, every county should have. And of course, people who really want to share that could go out and work the land. Go out and be part of that so that when it does come, everyone is ready.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. We should be ready, but let's face it. I think one of the reasons why we're not ready is because, number one, we don't hear this often. And number two, we know very few people who are actually doing it successfully. It takes faith. It's not like calling up Dave and saying, "Hey, Dave, I want to buy a house in Valley Center," and just going out and looking at the land. It takes faith to move from the city to the country.
Faith and money.
When you think about, faith and money, but that's faith. That's faith. Because a lot of times you're going to find that God's going to open He's going to open doors like you never believed. If you're just willing to take the step. Yeah.
People should think about is that you don't have to do this by yourself.
Right.
You could have a group of family or good friends, believers, where you all could get together and talk about this and invest
Yes.
together.
Yeah, be very careful doing it as a group, though. And I say that because I've seen groups try to do it. And it starts out, just like you're saying, it starts out very nice, like a honeymoon on a wedding. But somebody...
All Seventh-day Adventists, though, just to make sure.
Yeah.
It's not going to be
Some,
anyone from...
no, that's what I'm referring to, Seventh-day Adventist family. But someone in the group is going to have a hardship. And the enemy is going to make sure that somebody in the group has a hardship. And they're going to want out the group. They're going to want to sell out, and they're going to want everybody else to buy them out. And you're going to say, well, I'm just making it my little corner. I'm just barely surviving. And it's going to I've seen that happen. And I'm not trying to discourage. I am discouraging groups from going in together. If you're going to do it as a group, let's say you've got 4 families here that want to do it. If you want to do that, make sure each family have their own parcel with their own APN, with their own everything. Don't do this communal thing.
The land has to be divided.
Yes, yes.
We had
I
a,
agree with you.
we had a head elder here, Brother Jim Fanella, who had to have said, proposed that to the church, buying 76 acres of land in Warner Springs. And I thought everybody thought it was a really good idea. Now parse out that 76 acres to different members, that way we ran into a lot of trouble. People wanting this when it's already taken, or sometimes, there was just so much.
Right.
It was just a good idea, but I think maybe what that you're bringing up, having it done individually.
Right. Would be better. You would be more successful. And you can do it. You can do it. I mean, there are examples, and I'll talk a little bit more about that tomorrow when we go out. Yes?
I just want to know how long it took you to adjust to the city.
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. It was tough for me. Everybody's different, though. It was challenging for me. I'm trying to think. What's that?
Were you alone?
Yes. I was alone, and so I kind of made what, looking back now, was a rash decision. I'm sure if I were married, I wouldn't have moved. I wouldn't have moved the way I moved. I'll say that. At the time, because we had the economic collapse, and I was just like, I'm gone. Back in 2008. I would say that if you have a person that, let's say you're married and you want to do it together, the adjustment factor is going to be different for both. For the husband, it'll be different for the wife. For me, it took me about a couple years to adjust to being alone out on this 45-acre parcel of land. Just sitting out here like, okay, what do I do next? I mean, you can busy yourself and do a lot of things around the project. Something always needs to be done.
So would you have a plan, like to prepare?
Absolutely.
Land and all those things?
Absolutely, yes. I would have a plan, but even before you leave, I would develop a plan even before you leave. And part of the plan is going to be for families and couples is downsizing. Because no matter what you buy, you're not going to have the space out there that you have here.
You have the land, but you don't have.
Well, yeah, you have the land, but you're going to find that the house is not going to be as big as the one you have or the used to here in the city. You could buy something like that. If you have the means to do that, you could do that. But you're still going to find that there's going to be a need to downsize. And I would say start now, downsizing. Whatever things that you need to get rid of, start considering getting rid of it. And
That's the thing with Bert, we have some people here, and we're trying to get out. But the properties that we found out there, much more than my mortgage, and there's no way I was going to plan on going on the bigger debt or anything like that.
yeah,
People still want to move out into the country, but they still want to maintain that level of comfort that
Right,
they still expect
right.
to live during the, right here.
and part of the move is, I see your hand. Part of the move is going to be, again, faith, trusting God. because you're going to find that, you won't be able to see everything. I know families who have made the move and, they didn't have jobs in place necessarily. Now, I don't suggest that, but there were some families I know that did that. And right at the right moment, God came through with jobs for them. I mean, many doors have opened. I've seen many doors open. People that didn't even have a place, that just packed up. I know one lady down in Grand Terrace, family down in Grand Terrace, California. She was so methodical about it too. She packed all of her things in the garage in boxes, and she had on her computer everything organized in what box. She had toothpastes in box C of 5, and she had everything all organized. And she was living out these boxes. And then one day she just told her husband, let's go. Well, honey, we don't have a house. Well, let's go. And as soon as they packed up to leave, the Lord opened the door. Somebody called them and said, I got 10 acres here. Just come.
So, real fast before Cynthia asks a question. Do you have like the food stamps that don't burn on in case you don't have?
Yes.
What was the question, sister?
Is it prepared like with a wood stove for heating, for cooking in case electricity goes out or something like that?
Yes, I do. I have a wood stove and then a lot of wood. That's the other thing that I want to point out tomorrow when we go out on the tour tomorrow is try to find property that has trees on them. Because you will find that you cannot beat the amount of the ability to be able to heat your home using wood versus just paying for gas or whatever to heat your home. So wood stove, wood, water, sun exposure, and not landlocked. And we'll talk about other things tomorrow when we go out. Any other questions? Yes.
Doesn't the Spirit process say when we leave the cities, be able to come back into the cities
Absolutely.
and worship and witness to people? So
Yes.
here, I've noticed some people have moved out to Hamu, that's a 30-minute ride or an hour depending, and they can come right back into San Diego. But it sounds like you moved farther than
Yeah,
right back to the city.
yes, you're right. We do need to make provisions to be able to come back and to do what God has called us to do. We can't go bury ourselves in the country.
Wait for the Lord to come.
Yeah, we can't do that. That's not healthy mentally, spiritually, or physically to do that. But I think for me, I kind of like the area. Here's the thing that attracted me, and I'm sure you would agree if you had the option that I had. When I see a place, I grew up in Southern California, Riverside, LA County, more so Riverside County. That's like a desert out there. Very little is green out there. Everything's brown. So when I went somewhere where the trees were green and everything was green, and it's in October or July, I was attracted to that. So when I saw that, I said, I don't care how far it is. I'm moving. I want to be in this environment, which goes back to what I said about Enoch this morning. He wanted to be in the most purest environment possible. So that attracted me to where I live. And where I live, we have lots of water because there are 3 mountains. There's Lassen, Shasta, and the Trinity Alps. And Shasta and Lassen stay snow-capped year-round. So that means that snow is always melting. And if that snow is melting, water is running all year round. So I have water, mountain water running right through my property. That was attractive to me. I said, you know what? I'll drive to LA and do my evangelism. Doesn't matter to me. But you all may be different. So, yeah.
And that's what I was going to say. You're far away, but yet you're here doing the event.
Right. And it took me.
Whoever wants to do it is going to do it. Whoever is not doing it here in the city, even though if they move, they're not going to be doing it anyways. Or
Right.
if you leave or you stay in the city, you're still not doing the work.
But I can't overemphasize the benefit that it's going to have on you and your family if you follow God's plan. Yeah, you're going to have trials, you're going to have challenges, but boy, it's going to make your prayer life stronger. It's going to make you all around a better Christian.
That's how God intended from the beginning. When Abraham and Lot, Abraham decided to stay somewhere. Lot decided to go to the city.
Right.
That was in the intention
Right.
of God.
Right.
And God gave him opportunities for him to get out before many times.
Right.
And we didn't listen. He didn't listen until he sent the angels.
Right.
He moved, but the wife didn't listen.
Right.
And how many wives are here that can turn around and stay in the city?
Well, yeah.
Because we don't let go.
Because we don't let go. Correct. That's correct.
We don't let God.
That's correct. And
Share now.
what's that? Okay, yeah, go ahead, sister. Go ahead.
I was formerly from Singapore. We don't pay tax, property tax on primary residence. Same for Australia. But yes, they are trying to bring about change. So you only pay council fee.
Oh,
So you have the state of New South where Sydney is,
right.
and then you have Queensland, the state of Queensland, where Gold Coast and Brisbane.
Right.
Queensland, was it last year or when I was looking for it, they tried to implement that. That means do away with stamp duty. So when you buy a property, you pay a one-time offer. Like let's say you buy a house, 500, 600, whatever.
Right.
You pay a property stamp duty of maybe 20 or 30,000, depending on the percent, right? So they're trying to get rid of that and make you do what America is making
Right.
Americans do, pay property tax.
Annually.
Each year.
Right.
And it goes up with the years.
Yes.
So it got shot down. But it's still, they are still trying to bring it back.
Yeah.
That's Queensland.
Uh-huh.
And so people from Singapore and Australia, they don't pay property tax like you guys.
Right.
And so therefore, we want to retire in Australia.
Right.
The health care, I pay like one annually, only maybe 1,000 plus.
Right.
And when I had my operation in 2018, I paid 0 cents. But here,
It's different.
every month I pay so much.
Yeah, it's different.
And just now when somebody mentioned coming together to form a corporate, to have a own little Adventist community, because somebody in Australia tried that.
Yeah.
So you have a few ladies, one would buy the property, and then the others would chip in to renovate or to build, to add on more cabins, sell it. And in the end, this lady, because she bought the property, and there was some misunderstanding, and in the end, the others had to just back off, unless you want to sue. So it's not like
Yeah, it's challenging when you
have your own little castle, no matter how small. You can be close by, but you have your own.
right, right, right.
The other thing I want to share is pesticide. So I was looking for property, and the place that we were looking at is macadamia country, where they grow macadamias and they spray. So I was looking for a property with water, river. But then, if you have the macadamia farm next to you, the wind will carry. A lot of people are sick. They come down with cancer. So you don't want if you know of any farm nearby, and they use pesticide, which more often than not, if it's commercial, they do. So you don't want that.
Right.
It took me a long time to look for one that's further away. So, and now mine is without water, because what do? You can't find one that's close. Close by with water is near the macadamia.
Yeah. The Lord can make a way. I want to encourage everyone. The Lord, If you're willing and you just take that step, it's like ancient Israel when they stepped into the Red Sea. He can part the sea. So whatever difficulties or trials, but the key is to be willing to go forward. Any final questions? Yes, Tracy. Not really. We're going to do it tomorrow here, but I'm not doing it in Northern California.
The reason I asked is because so much of what you taught during that and the booklet that talks about what to look for, water and soil and all of that would be really helpful.
Right. Yeah, and I mentioned to Sister Jennifer that I did bring. Did I bring that syllabus? But I wanted to kind of go through that syllabus because in the syllabus we have not only the principles that I shared, but we also have resources, lots of resources that include, what states are better for if you have children, you're homeschooling your children, what states more homeschool friendly, what states are, what else? A lot of resources, even making employment online. We have a lot of resources in the syllabus on that. So these are some of the things that really help out when you're going to make that decision. So go ahead, Tracy.
Do you have the syllabus online?
I don't. I just have it in booklet form, and I was going to bring it here, but I just didn't get a chance to make copies and whatnot. It's about 100 I think it's 100 pages or so. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
You mentioned workshops.
Right. That's the other thing. Glad you mentioned that. The other part of the tour is we usually do it on Sunday. So the way the tours work, we do that I was just showing you pictures of. On Friday, we do what's called the property search, which is what we're going to do tomorrow here. But we usually do it on Friday. Then on Sabbath, we have all day at church. Usually they go to the local church. They'll meet a lot of families in church that live in the country, obviously. And then on Sunday, we do what's called all-day workshops, practical workshops. So everything from how to plant, how to till the soil, how to irrigate, where we actually let the people on the tour go out and do the irrigation, how to build the irrigation, PVC pipes and whatnot. And everything from and including, I've got one workshop that the young people really like, and it's called Dealing with the Critters. So we talk about everything from snakes to spiders to scorpions and how you can deal with these types of, whatever critters in the country. Some of the other workshops how to fall trees, wood stoves, how to clean your wood stove, how to grow herbs. We got one lady that grow nothing but herbs. That's all she does is medicinal herbs. And she's very good at it, and she does a workshop. And then there's another lady that does, so there's different workshops that we do. And that is kind of unique to where I live. I don't know that we can do that here because I don't know anyone that's actually doing that here. Usually we kind of co-op with other Adventists to do these tours. And it works there, but here it might be a little different. Yes, true. Yes.
Do you drive?
Yes. That's another workshop that we do with canning, drying, and freezing. And we show how to do it, what appliances you want to buy to do it efficiently, and how to do it step by step. Also, how to set up a root cellar. So these are principles and things that are very, very, and when you start doing it, you get to a point to where you only go to the supermarket for things like paper goods and things like that because you begin to see the benefit. Let me tell you, when you grow your own food and you're canning it and preserving it, you're in the winter eating peaches, pears. You're in the winter eating applesauce. when everyone else is just eating canned, it's just so different. And you come to appreciate it and you come to enjoy it. It is a lot of work. It's not easy. But to answer her question, do I do it? I do it on a small scale, very small scale. But you can do it. Yes.
It's a blessing.
Yes, it
It's
is.
really sad. My sister, we were raised Catholic, and my sister was the first to become a Adventist. She was about 21. This was at least like, I would say, 48 years ago. We lived in San Diego, and she moved to Guatemala. And when she moved there, she was a new Adventist. And so at that time, many Adventists would can their own fruits and everything. They were just into basically what Adventists used to be.
Right.
And now nobody really cans or grow gardens, nothing up in Walla. Yeah, it's very yeah. So it's kind of sad.
Yeah, it's beneficial.
But it is.
And when you think about the animal kingdom, they do it already to survive. You think about ants, you think about anything in nature will store up in that fashion. And, obviously, so it becomes a problem when you have times like COVID-19 where the shelves become bare and you can't buy. That day, that's coming again. And a person, you can see how even during COVID-19, if you had your own garden during COVID-19, you were happy to be shut down because you didn't have anything to worry about. Whereas most people were running to Costco trying to buy toilet goods. And
Your meetings last for years and years.
Right. Go ahead.
In our country, in the United States, there seem to be some places where our Adventist brothers and sisters are more apt to accept this message.
Yeah.
And there seems to be more families that are willing to go to the country, engage in prophecy through angels, message. At least in my experience, in the area where we live here in South San Diego, that's not the
Norm.
Other than this church, it's not what's normal.
Yeah, it's not norm.
In general.
Yes.
Based on your experience, which is much broader than mine,
What's the reason for that?
What's going on with that?
Let me tell you.
Kind of you feel like an outlier when you're here in Adventist in San Diego, and you want to learn how to can, and you want to learn how to do this, and there's other Adventists that are like, no,
For what?
Like why? And again, not the norm here in this church. It's part of, why we love it here. But we're just wondering, your thoughts are based on your travels.
Yeah, that has been a problem. In fact, I'll tell you a short little story, kind of a funny story. When I talked to Pastor Lee, he and I spoke, I think it was about 2 months ago or whatnot, and he invited me to come today to do this weekend. Well, I called him this past week, and the week before he left, and I said, Pastor, I just want to inform you on what I'm going to talk about, because I didn't know where he stood, right? And as I began talking with him, I was kind of talking to him kind of in a roundabout way. And he was like, come on, just tell me, what are you going to do? And so I told him what I was going to do. He's like, that's okay. That's fine. And I told him, I said, Pastor, you are few and far between. In terms of pastors that I've met, because I've gone around to do this talk in a lot of churches. And the pastors don't, and I told Pastor Lee, I said, pastors, everywhere I go, they close the door on me. They don't want me sharing this because two things. One, they're going to lose members. Two, they're going to lose tithe. Usually when families start moving away, so does the money move away. So, this is something that they try to guard against. But Pastor Lee is different. And he was very welcoming. And so I praise God. That's why I'm here. So, but to answer your question, there are groups that are more knowledgeable, families that are more knowledgeable to these. And that's the reason why we do the tours, because every time I take a family like you all to meet a family that's more knowledgeable, it strikes up a friendship that usually last forever almost. Because they begin to learn that there's knowledge that is available from someone that's like-minded. And so it's kind of like it's a blessing. And not only that, they learn a lot. And then you'll find that once you learn, you're going to be more apt to teach someone else. And,
I had an experience a year ago where in June of last year, we spent 10 days in Colorado and Eden Valley seeking
Yeah.
the outpost living.
Right.
What is it like to live in the country? And then a month later, we went to Kentucky to another outpost in Kentucky. I can't remember the name right now. But in both visits, we met people that are, brothers and sisters that are so far ahead of where we are, and some that had been Adventists for 3 months, or we've been Adventists for 20-some years, and it was shameful.
Exactly.
Honestly, we're going to talk about feeling shame.
Yeah.
Knowing
Exactly.
these truths.
They leave everything behind.
Yeah, I meet people like that all the time.
Yes.
And they're all different ethnicities. You name it. They're all different age groups. Even as I mentioned earlier, even the kids. I'll show you pictures and video of the kids. They make their own swings and whatnot, and they're safer and they're much more exciting and fun. And the kids from the city go and play in it, and they just don't want to leave. They just love it. So there are benefits on all sides. Tomorrow, our goal is to kind of show you some examples here locally. So I don't know, Dave, what time would you say would be good for us to meet, and where, and how do you want to?
Then we can compile just a list together of people who are wanting to kind of do it, and then we'll designate a meeting place that's more convenient to everybody.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Let me tell you what's happening in Australia. So those members who bought property years ago and 5 acres of it, now they're home. So people who don't have land, they can come and work on their land.
Right.
And then the stuff that they grow, they will share with the owners. And would even rear bees.
Mm-hmm.
And then he would sell the bee and the honey. So initially when I was looking, we are city folks, right? From Singapore, we expect, right? The only thing we know are high-rise skyscrapers. So when we went there, we were looking at 25 acres. And then we got nagged at by Australian SEO friends. You city folks, you came out during COVID, right? Because the city, they were fleeing the city. And then they would crash all over the land. And after that, when things died down, they would grab it because they didn't know what to do with the land.
Mm-hmm.
And there was nothing to sell. So that so still 18 acres. Nag some, scale back. And now I ended up buying 1.64 acre only. And even that rental is still a lot of work.
Yeah.
A lot of work. So, but the time is coming where those of us who have property cannot be selfish.
Right.
I know of no other denomination that is so much into country living. I tell you, in Australia, where I got property, a lot of us have property there,
Right.
country. So you won't starve. Just go and look for your Adventist brethren. Ask to have a small plot of land. We have to work together to help each other. You will need help to till the land if you have acres and acres. So don't be selfish, right?
Yeah.
Just share. Everybody
Share.
Where you come, where you go to whatever. We won't
Yeah.
starve.
Yeah,
Whereas
there-
the people in the Sunday churches, I don't hear that.
Right.
So a lot of them never even, you see, I am mixing with Maranatha at Rancho Bernardo, that huge mega church, Maranatha. They don't preach it.
Right.
So they don't preach this kind of thing.
Their Sunday church.
So no, they don't talk about preparing for the end times. Why? Because they said things are going to get let us suffer. This is the message to the Americans. Don't worry. Trump is going to save us. This is the message that he took. They look at me like some weirdo.
That's the reason why God is depending on us to tell them the truth and to tell them from the Bible, to show them.
I say, the day is coming where you will starve, go and look for an Adventist family.
Right.
And hope they will have mercy on you and give you some food.
Right.
Just a quick comment there. I was talking to Pastor Barron, and he was saying that if there was his brother here who was like, oh, told me he got to move on to the country, move on to the country. And it's not that I want to. I'm praying about it, and I'm sure, God's will be done. But the thing is, Pastor was saying that there is some people have moved there for so long, and as you said, it takes a measure of faith to do that. That some of them people don't have mental health problems, being out there in the country by themselves.
Yeah.
And because there can be a lot of idle time, and they sometimes fall into that. And because I have people calling me all the time, like, and I know that they are in the country, but they want somebody to talk to. They want somebody to have some conversation with.
Yeah. Different people require different social outlets, and I think, everybody's kind of different. It may be easier for some, it may be harder for others, but ultimately the whole purpose for moving to the country is not just getting there to idle. Ultimately, the reason to move to the country is so that you can commune with God, like Enoch did. Enoch is our example. And another reason is so that you can bring someone back with you.
I know a group of people who got together with friends, and the expenses are shared together, not like you were saying that it was one person bought the land, one person. No, it's all expenses, and every expense is done together. But this is what the end thing is. So when we cannot handle the situation here anymore, because they're going to come up after us, we go over there, but not to be by themselves, but you help other people that are like-minded, that love God. Wouldn't it be nice to be in a place that you are in the country and you are with people who love God?
Yes.
That you are worshiping God, that you are in the Word all the time. And if somebody comes to your property and if they're the same accord, you open up the doors.
Right.
Because that's what it's all about. Because there's going to be a time where we can't even go to the cities. Doesn't it say in the Bible that there's going to be a time where nobody is going to listen to you anymore? There's
going to be a famine. But listen, let's do this because our time is up. I want to pass around a sheet. Those that want to go out tomorrow, we want to get your name and your phone number. What we'll do is maybe we'll have it at the door. You think, David, or should we just... Okay. Yeah, you could just come see me and we'll get your name on the list. We're going to go out tomorrow. We're going to look at about 4 properties, 3 or 4, I guess. And these are going to be examples of kind of what's in the area that you can look for. They're acres. I think one is 4 acres. What was it, 10 acres or 4 acres? Yeah. 5, no, the one you sent. Okay, yeah. Anyway, it's in Valley Center. And anyway, we'll go into that. Those that are interested tomorrow, we'll go into that because a lot of that, obviously we want to save for after Sabbath. But let's go ahead and bow our heads and pray and close. Those that want to leave now, those that want to stay behind and get your name on the list, you can do that. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for this Sabbath. We thank you for the opportunity we have to share and to talk about these matters. Please be with us, Lord, as we are seeking more and more to make preparations for your soon coming. We know it's near. We want to be ready. We want to help others to get ready. So give us wisdom, give us skill, give us discernment, and help us to follow your leading. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.